I want to give you a couple more things. I have an inside scoop on the metals and what's going to affect them. Now, what I'm saying today doesn't mean silver's going up $10 an ounce by tomorrow. But it's like there's an underlying volcano coming up here in the metals, maybe because silver always does this thing, the unexpected. Right now, a lot of people are really down in the dumps, and I noticed most of the silver channels are pretty shut up, and they're pretty low key if they're even talking. That's what's making me feel good about it, but I want to examine a little bit more what's going on with China. Now, I know I'm going to apply some common sense, because this goes a long way. A long, long way. First off, and I mentioned this before, but I'll just go over real quick, who's the biggest foreign buyer of the bonds, treasuries? China. So along to make the U.S. government make them appease their best customer, they gave them open access to the bond market, direct access. In other words, no longer could Goldman Sachs front run them on the exchange. So that's to help their best customer, but that shows they need that best customer. They need that best customer badly. Now, this is something else that's interesting that's coming up, and it's not a very well-known point. Well, you might know a little bit about it. It's called the Chinese shadow banking system. Now, what happens is a lot of times the regular banks, they have parameters on what they can give out for loans, right? Now, you also note that a lot of real estate and building projects over in China have come to a complete halt, right? The real estate boom and all that stuff, the building boom, that's also puts a lot of pressure on the commodities. A lot of that stuff came to a complete standstill, and there's a major slowdown. There's probably a lot more of a slowdown than expected. Now, here's the thing. This is all kind of like nobody really knows what's going on with it. But all these other companies that can't get loans through the regular banking system, they'll go through another venue, and they call it the shadow banking system. Basically, it's like families and stuff like that. They have their own little organization in the background, and these people who lend that money out from the shadow banking system get it from the regular banking system. Now, how big is that? The size of the Chinese shadow banking system is estimated at 14.5 trillion renminbi, $2.5 trillion according to the Bank of America. That is 25% of all the loans made in China by traditional regulated banking sectors. Very, very, very precarious, because all that money. And here's the other thing. The shadow banking system is also highly leveraged. Now, just follow through what that means. If they're doing easing in China and they have to do bailouts for banks, they're not going to be, what are they going to be doing with their money? They're going to be spending it domestically to prop up their own banking system. They're not going to be going hog wild buying U.S. treasuries. That's a given. That is a major given. Shadow lenders make most of their money by borrowing from regular banks at low interest rates and lending out at higher interest rates to riskier buyers. Basically, that's illegal, but that's what's going on in China. But that's 25% of the loans out there. That's nothing. That's no small change. So they could have a major, major problem. Now, I don't think it's going to trash them out, but what I say is they're not going to be spending their money buying treasuries. They're going to be spending it locally and propping up their own banking system, and propping up construction projects, finishing up construction projects, or whatever it takes. They're not going to be just buying U.S. treasuries, even though Uncle Sam is trying to cater to them big time. And the other problem with the shadow banks is no deposit loans are on hand backing up the shadow banks' loans. Like the regular banking system has loans, and if you need to pay something out, no problem. Well, with the shadow banks, it's all kind of fly-by-night, and that's the end of that deal. So, this to me means they're not going to be buying U.S. bonds as much. This also is bad for the commodities in one way, because it can actually slow down demand for the commodities. But I think the reaction is China has to keep that 8% growth. So they're just going to spend the money locally and support projects locally. So that's just all that's going to happen. I mean, they got plenty of money, so they're going to spend it locally. They're just not going to be buying U.S. treasuries. Now, the other thing coming up, this is right off the federalreserve.gov site. This is a FOMC meeting, right? Federal Open Market Committee meeting. June 19th and 20th coming up this week, right? So it's coming up in a couple of days. Now, already Ben Bernanke is kind of hinting at something. It says Treasury bonds rose when Ben Bernanke kept alive speculation that central banks, the Federal Reserve, will provide more monetary stimulus to help the U.S. economic recovery. Something they've been talking about all along. But we're going to see if he says it. Now, if he says that, watch the metals fly. Like, in other words, if he says, his words start saying economic stimulus, watch the metals fly. So maybe that rumor about $37 silver by the end of August, I don't know, that seems pretty way out there, but who knows? I don't think it would go up that fast, but who knows? 30-year bond yields just rose 5 basis points, which is hardly nothing because they were just off a record low on June 1st, 2012. But, it's giving hints of volcanic trends bubbling up beneath the surface. Like, they were talking about the bond bubble. So wait till interest rates go up. Wait till they start going up, and they are. They're just going to start creeping up. So that bubble's going to start to break. And once the greed factor comes in, see the metals start going up a lot because of easing. And the Chinese are doing easing. So if the Chinese are doing easing, I think it has the same effect on the commodities in silver and gold on the global market, right? Same deal. It's just not going to be something that you're going to see this tomorrow or next week. Well, maybe it's going to start coming up here, before the end of the summer. Before even the end of August, you're going to see quite a bit of higher metal prices. It's kind of crazy because most people don't expect it right now. And I just noticed one rule about silver. Expect the unexpected. It's the craziest metal in the world. It can go up or down and on the slightest news from the Federal Reserve or the Euro or whatever. But it looks like that's their only option. I've always been saying this. It's just taking so damn long for them to react. But looking what's going on with China too, pretty interesting. So we might see some serious moves due to these other factors. Watch this FOMC meeting. Metals might start springing up here in a few days. They might. Could just very well happen. His words can make silver fly. I know, and everybody's going to criticize him like he's a bad guy. If you got silver, he's a good guy. If you don't have silver, he's a bad guy. That's the way I look at it. So, for us minorities in the silver and gold camp and the palladium camp, when Ben Bernanke does QE, yes, I know he's raising all the prices across the board, but other metals are going to go up a lot faster, and that's what you want to happen. Now, again, I just want to repeat with China, they have this shadow banking system. Looks like it's ready to implode pretty soon. Every time we look on more and more facts about China, like the coal industry's down, the steel industry's way down. People are actually getting out of those industries. They're going into agriculture and pig farming and stuff like that. They're getting totally away from the manufacturing. So that's saying there is a major slowdown. But in the case of China, like I said before, they got to watch for a freaking total economic revolution. I mean, in other words, a people revolution if the economy is that bad. Because that's really what's keeping a lot of people's mind off of what's going on with the leadership in China. But if they have, a lot of work outages and food price increases and stuff like that, they'll have a revolution on their hands. People get their backs to the wall. They'll actually have a revolution. So the Chinese leaders' policy for now is definitely going to be lots and lots of economic stimulus. And it's going to be concentrating mainly on their own economy. It's not going to be concentrating on buying U.S. treasuries. No, not in a million years. So that's going to be something else. So I think the Federal Reserve is going to be buying more of their own debt, you know. So this trend is starting to heat up. That's all I got to say. You know, I mean, I can't give you some dramatic news like silver's going to go up $10 tomorrow, but it does. There's more and more signs coming out, and those are two of the signs right there. You know, even if you want to even look at some more things, you know, I don't know how this is going to play out for the metals, but if you look in San Bernardino, California, it was the third city to go bankrupt, and it looks like there's going to be a lot more cities going bankrupt. And I don't know how the hell that stuff's going to work out, but it looks like there's going to be more bailout, more easing, and it's going to have to help the states and all this type of stuff. So, you know, all that stuff doesn't bode well for the economy. So the only option out of that is more easing. So I'd expect Ben Bernanke to actually talk a lot more about, you know, QE easing policies in the next couple of days during this next meeting, which is scheduled for 2 days from now, 2 and 3 days from now, July 19th and July 20th. So several factors coming up. So maybe that crazy rumor about, which, you know, I wouldn't predict that myself. I think silver is going to hit, I've been saying this, I'm thinking by the end of the year it's going to hit an all-time high, maybe 60, 70 bucks. That's what I was thinking. But, you know, I don't know. There was another rumor out there for $75. I don't know. I'm going to watch that ratio, though. That's the one thing I told you. You know, silver gets near 30 to 1. It might go to 28 to 1. I'm not going to try to guess it. I'm going to sell a little physical and wait for a pullback. So that's the game.